Today, we're going to read a news article from the BBC together so you can improve your English vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, so you feel more confident speaking. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
First, I'll read the headline. People want dumb phones. Will companies make them? Now notice there is a single dash around dumb phones because it's letting you know it's not the technical term, dumb phones. So here you see in the image a dumb phone, also previously called a flip phone. What about you? Do you want a dumb phone? Because the headline says people. And of course, you're a person. So do you want a dumb phone? You can say yes. Yes, I do is the short form. Or you can use the full form and say, yes, I want. And then instead of repeating a dumb phone, the noun, native speakers, we use the word one. Yes, I want one. And one represents dumb phone. So that's an easy way to sound more fluent by not repeating the noun. Or negatively, no, no, I don't. Notice that contraction of do not. No, I don't. No, I don't want one. I don't want one. So put your option in the comments. You can just put yes or no. You don't need to use it. But if you want, you can use the short or full form as well. And let's see if the headline is right and if people want dumb phones. So we'll find out in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's continue. The iPhone turns 17 this year. Ooh, I didn't know that. So notice our verb choice, to turn. This is when you go from one age to the next age. If someone asks you, how old are you? You could say, I just turned 47. This is to let you know that to let the person know that you're actually closer to 46 than you are 47. I just turned 47. Just means in the recent past. Or you could also say, I turn 47 next week. This is to let the person know that you're 46, but you're actually closer to 47. Now notice there are two verb tense options. You can use the present continuous, I'm turning, or you can use the present simple, I turn. So notice in this sentence, what verb tense did the writer use? The iPhone turns, of course, the present simple, and we add that s because your subject is the iPhone. It turns 17 this year, which means the iPhone is currently 16, but is closer to 17 than 16. The launch of the touch screen controlled device signaled a moment that has defined our expectations of smartphones ever since. Let's look at this expression, signaled a moment. So the launch is when the iPhone became available to the public for the first time. And notice, instead of just repeating the iPhone again, the article calls it the device, because you need an article in front of the noun device. But touch screen controlled, which is a little difficult to say, even for me, functions as the adjective. So it describes the device. Now, a useful tip, if there are words that are difficult to say because they're just long or contain complex sounds, you can just add little pauses to help you with those sounds. Touch screen controlled. So I might more pronounce this like 3 individual words just because it would be quite difficult to say all at once, even for me. Signaled a moment, this means that it was an important moment in time, but you can just say moment. Now, instead of signaled, a common replacement to that verb would be marked a moment. So the launch of the iPhone marked a moment, signaled a moment, was an important moment that has defined our expectations of smartphones ever since. So ever since the launch. Let's continue. Almost an entire generation has grown up never knowing life without a smartphone. Let's take a look at know in the sentence, because notice it's knowing, the ing form. That's because it's a participle. This is a participle phrase, and it's used because this action is continuous. We also use this for more habitual actions. For example, I could say, I grew up reading poetry. I grew up. So to grow up represents being a child and then becoming older and older until you're an adult. When you're an adult, you're considered to be a grown up. So I'm no longer growing up, unfortunately. I'm a grown up. I grew up reading poetry. Now, this means I read a lot of poetry when I was a kid. So it's used to talk about habitual action at that period in time when I was growing up, when I was a kid. So how about you try this? You can put in the comments, I grew up, and then you need a gerund verb. I grew up watching English TV shows. I grew up cooking with my mother. What did you do habitually as you were growing up, when you were a kid? So try that in the comments.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Enough time has passed that people have learned about the good and bad of these devices in their lives. Now let's pause for a moment here. Notice learned with a T. This article was written by the BBC, British English. In North American English, we would use ED for the ending. And there is a very subtle pronunciation difference, but it's very subtle. Most likely you wouldn't notice it, and it doesn't matter which one you use because they're both correct. In American English, the ending has a very soft D sound. Learned, learned about. Whereas in British English, there's a T sound. Learnt about, learnt. Learned. But again, in natural speech, you most likely won't hear that ending and it won't be pronounced as exaggerated as I just did. So I'll read it again, and because I speak American English, I'm going to use the soft D as I say this. Enough time has passed that people have learned about the good and bad of these devices in their lives, whether from myriad scientific studies or simply their own experiences. Do you know what myriad means? It simply means numerous because it can be a large number, which means numerous, or a large variety as well, depending on the context. Now, notice that pronunciation, myriad. So you don't really hear this A in the word. It just sounds like id at the end. So here's the phonetic spelling for you. Now, in this case, it's an adjective because it's describing the scientific studies as being numerous from myriad scientific studies. The same word is commonly used in a different sentence structure where it becomes a noun. So to turn it into a noun, you would say a myriad of studies, of scientific studies, because you have this article here and we only use articles with nouns. So that can be an indicator to you if it's functioning as a noun or an adjective. And in this case where it's a noun, you would have the structure a myriad of, and then something. So I could say, I have a myriad of lessons, free lessons on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe. And that is a true example. So make sure you subscribe. Let's continue. Many people are now acutely aware. Acutely, notice that pronunciation, cute. Acutely is an intensifier, the same as very or really. Acutely aware. For example, I'm acutely aware of the risks. So it makes it sound more intense. It makes it sound like the risks are also more intense as well. So in this case, many people are now acutely aware of the costs. The whole sentence sounds stronger. So it's a powerful word and it functions as an adverb. So they're acutely aware of the costs of having the world at their fingertips. And of course, having the world at your fingertips is a reference to the fact that you can have any information or do basically whatever you want right at your fingertips. And they're rejecting. So they're saying no. If you reject something, you say no to it. And they're rejecting the ways these phones can sap concentration. So if it saps your concentration, it means it takes it away. It removes it from you. After a long day at work, you could say, this project saps all my energy. So it takes away. It can also mean weaken at the same time, depending on the context. But this one sounds like removes, takes away. This project saps all my energy. You can also add an optional me of. This project saps me of all my energy. But if it's obvious because I have my energy, then it's not necessary. But if you really want to specify who is being sapped, then you can add saps someone of something. So in this case, can sap concentration. Now we're changing our verb to impact sleep and exasperate mental health concerns. Notice the pronunciation here. This is a tricky one. Zas. So get that sound. Zas. Exacerbate. Repeat after me. Exacerbate. Now this makes something bad even worse. So mental health concerns, having them, that's already a bad situation. And then a smartphone can exacerbate that. It can make it even worse. So I can add on to my previous example and say, this project saps all my energy and the tight deadline exacerbates my stress. Now notice I added the S. Why? Because this is in the present simple and exacerbate is a verb. The tight deadline as a subject is it. It exacerbates, because it's a factual situation, it exacerbates my stress. Let's continue. There are plenty of relatively simple ways to address these issues to some extent. Well, this sounds positive. Relatively simple, that sounds positive. Address the issues. But then when they add to some extent, it means that they're not going to address it fully. Because if you say, oh, this will address your problem, this will solve your problem, but then I say, to some extent, it means not fully. It means only a part of it. So adding to some extent is a very important word. So let's see one of these relatively simple ways. Say, installing apps that limit screen time. So that seems relatively simple. But some people are deciding to go further. So to go further, to do even more. Returning to a time before constant connection. So of course, they're talking about dumb phones now. They're transitioning to dumb phones. So when you transition, it means you gradually go from one thing to another thing. So transitioning to dumb phones. They're going to gradually, slowly stop using their smartphone and start using a dumb phone. I don't really like that term too much. Hopefully they create a better word for it than dumb phone. But maybe that's just me. Maybe you like the term. A catch-all term for phones with basic functions such as calling, texting, and setting alarms. You might be wondering what a catch-all term is. So catch-all is an adjective. So just that one word is an adjective, and it describes term, a term for phones, a name for phones. But if it's a catch-all term, a catch-all name, it means it's a broad term. It includes many different things or a wide range. So it doesn't just include one brand like iPhone, Apple. It includes all phones with these basic functions. So that would be a catch-all. Now let's go back here in the article because I noticed they said installing apps that limit screen time. Sometimes I hear students say, oh, I tried this application. And technically that is the full form of the word, applications. I created a new application, but native speakers don't use that term. We always call it apps, and it sounds awkward, unnatural to hear someone say, oh, I tried this new application and I really liked it. So although yes, that is the full term, native speakers don't use it. We just say apps. This is an article written by the BBC, and yet they're still using the word apps. Let's continue. Despite demand from a rising trend, I came to understand phone manufacturers have little to no interest in offering these devices. Okay, so the author came to understand. When you come to understand something or come to whatever the verb is, it means you understand something after a period of time. So originally, the author didn't understand this point. It was after some research or some time, some conversations. I came to understand. You could say, I came to realize the importance of practicing my speaking skills. So if you came to realize it, it means initially at the beginning, you didn't realize this. It was only after a period of time. I came to understand phone manufacturers have little to no interest in offering these devices. So the author could have just said have no interest, but the expression little to no interest includes that there might be some interest, but it's making the amount of it sound quite small. Again, you might say, I have little to no experience public speaking, just to emphasize almost no experience. But remember, you do have a small amount of experience. So if you didn't, you would just say, I have no experience. But if you say little to no, it does mean you have a small amount, almost none, but not zero. So don't let that no experience confuse you with this expression. With smartphones comprising the vast majority of all new phone sales, technology giants have little economic incentive to keep churning out new dumb phones or upgrading their existing lineups. Let's start at the beginning here. With smartphones comprising the vast majority of all new phone sales. So the vast majority, this is again just emphasizing it, making it stronger. Although majority is already strong, so it makes it quite strong. So when I hear vast majority, I think maybe 90%, 95, 98%, really high amount. So smartphones make up would be the everyday word, make up 90%, the vast majority of new phone sales. Technology giants have little economic incentive. So in this case, although they're saying little, is emphasizing the lack of it. I have little experience. Again, it's saying that I don't have a lot. So I would translate that to have almost no economic incentive, little economic incentive to keep churning out. If you churn out something, it means that you produce something, you create something, fabricate something at a relatively consistent and steady pace. They keep churning out new phones. But remember, they have almost no economic incentive to keep churning out, to keep producing at a large pace, keep churning out new dumb phones or updating their existing lineups. Their existing lineups would be the dumb phones, again, don't like that term, the dumb phones that already exist. And the lineups would be the make, the model, the brand. That would be the existing lineups. While small meaning the demand, because they are talking about demand, while small, there is a market for dumb phones. If there's a market for something, it means there are people who are interested in purchasing that product. In the US, August 2023 data from Counterpoint Research shows feature phones, a type of basic dumb phone with stripped down capabilities. If the capabilities are stripped down, it means that many of the capabilities, the functions that are available, if you strip them down, it means you take them away. So they're not available. So these dumb phones have stripped down capabilities. Again, just texting, calling, and it said setting alarms. Comprise just 2% of the handset. Oh yeah, hand, because you hold it in your hand, your phone, handset market. That only accounts for a tiny sliver. In this case, sliver means portion. A tiny sliver, a tiny portion. But it's still plenty of devices. Counterpoint estimated feature phone sales. Remember, feature is the name of a dumb phone. I didn't know that. So feature is the name of a dumb phone. So phone sales of this dumb phone called feature. Feature phone sales in the US alone would hit 2.8 million by the end of the year. So that's still a lot of phones sold. Now notice the article uses the verb hit, would hit 2.8 million. So this means to reach 2.8 million, and we often change reach to hit when it's an accomplishment, an achievement. So I could say I just hit 1 million subscribers because it's an accomplishment. And you can help me out with that by subscribing, like this video, share it with your friends, and help me hit 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. Why not? Let's put that timeline in. So that's the end of our article, learning all about dumb phones. I'm actually very excited to see someone walking down the street using a dumb phone. I haven't seen that in a very long time. So now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. People want dumb phones. Will companies make them? The iPhone turned 17 this year. The launch of the touch screen controlled device signaled a moment that has defined our expectations of smartphones ever since. Almost an entire generation has grown up never knowing life without a smartphone. Enough time has passed that people have learned about the good and bad of these devices in their lives, whether from myriad scientific studies or simply their own experiences. Many people are now acutely aware of the costs of having the world at their fingertips, and they're rejecting the ways these phones can sap concentration, impact sleep, and exacerbate mental health concerns. There are plenty of relatively simple ways to address these issues to some extent, say installing apps that limit screen time, but some people are deciding to go further, returning to a time before constant connection. They're transitioning to dumbphones, a catch-all term for phones with basic functions such as calling, texting, and setting alarms. Despite demand from a rising trend, I came to understand phone manufacturers have little to no interest in offering these devices. With smartphones comprising the vast majority of all new phone sales, technology giants have little economic incentive to keep churning out new dumb phones or updating their existing lineups. While small, there is still a market for dumb phones. In the US, August 2023 data from Counterpoint Research shows feature phones, a type of basic dumb phone with stripped down capabilities, comprise just 2% of the handset market. That only accounts for a tiny sliver, but is still plenty of devices. Counterpoint estimated feature phone sales in the US alone would hit 2.8 million by the end of the year.
Did you like this lesson? Do you want me to make more lessons just like this? If you do, then put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep expanding your vocabulary with this lesson. Watch it right now.